Welcome back to the Incredible Machines podcast, where we sit down with incredible people doing incredible things. Today we sit down with James Lees, passionate entrepreneur, educator, and co-founder of Advantage Learn. We talk about how James is building a purpose-driven education business with sights on impacting 1 million learners, the story behind his stroke and how it changes perspective in life, the power of discipline, unlocking potential in others, and the future of tech in education. So settle in as we dive into an episode filled with resilience, purpose, and the inspiring story of someone truly committed to making a difference. Let's dive in with the incredible James Lees.
I didn't know you were built in Joburg, and it started off there. I don't know if you want to kickstart from like right at the beginning.
Yeah,
there.
Sure. No, thanks, John. So I was born in Johannesburg, on Guy Fawkes, 5th of November. So I like to say born with a bang. And grew up there for like the early part of my life. We were quite, my father was a well-educated British man. He passed away this year.
Sorry.
No. Oh, yeah. But he was really, really talented. Managed to get into Cambridge, into Trinity House. So that's, where Stephen Hawking and then we went, like very prominent residents. And so like kind of had everything before him. And I think he studied his law degree, went into big law firms over there. And then he met my mom, got married, and then they settled in Johannesburg, and I was born to them in 1984. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you lived a few years there. Do you remember much of Joburg?
Yeah, for sure. No, I do remember a lot. So we stayed in quite a nice area, which was then called, it probably is still called that, but Paulshof. I had a nice big house. My father was really doing well then. I think he was working for Coopers and Lybrand, which is now PwC. And so in my early days, from what I can remember, was we had a really nice big home, huge garden. So really we're doing well. My father was collecting cars. I mean, he was at that level of kind of like wealth at the time. And then we one day I can recall, just suddenly my mom and my dad were having a huge fight, and obviously as a child you kind of remember that and know something's up. And he had been struggling with alcohol, and it had started to affect his work, and he had actually been fired. But he hadn't told my mom, and was kind of like living a second life outside of this, and she was completely unaware, to the point where the bank came to repossess the house while we were still living there, and it just all kind of like blew up from there.
So she knew nothing?
She knew nothing. Yeah, knew nothing. And then so we kind of had to like urgently get another place to stay. My mom immediately was like, this is done. So she just took Chris, my brother, and I, set us up in a new home, and that she just started working. It was a big trigger for her, from having no money, in debt now because he had run up debt, to just start working hard. She was a maths teacher at the time, and so just started working in the afternoons, tutoring the afternoons, just really just poured her efforts into earning cash so that Chris and I could be okay.
And that came, you moved to Durban, or was that?
So she worked hard there. I went, so I was at St. Peter's at the time, a primary school in Johannesburg, and then when this happened, the school fees hadn't been paid, and so I had to get moved to St. Stithians, where my mom was teaching. And luckily at that point, a lot of the private schools, you could get kind of a free education. So went across to there in about standard 1, so grade 3. And then I was very happy at Saints. Kind of things settled a bit at home. My mom and my father had separated, not divorced. We lived kind of like semi-comfortably and happily there. I was going to St. Stithians, and then my mom met someone in Durban and decided to get remarried, and that was in about grade 6, so halfway through standard 4, grade 6. And so she got remarried, and we moved down, and then my parents finally got divorced at that point. But there was in that moment when the finality happened, my father lost his mind. It was quite a hectic moment in our relationship, and in my mom's, where he found out that we were going to move and they were getting divorced, and he just wanted to come and basically steal us, take us and the stuff from our house. Remember, he climbed the fence, and I had to essentially being young, however old I was, 12, 11 years old, I had to pick up my credit card and try to stop him from from taking all our stuff. So it's quite a hectic moment to exit.
You had to face off with your dad to tell him, Dad, I'm staying. And
I'm going with Mom and you can't take our stuff.
Where was she?
She was there also, also trying to stop him. But it was quite a hectic moment.
Yeah.
And never kind of reconciled. It's really weird.
Well, he's just desperate.
Desperate. A lot going on, but there never was as a son to a father. I often think of that moment, and I'm try to put myself in his shoes. It must have been an enormously emotional moment. Imagine your kids are getting taken away from you essentially. So I can really sympathize with them, and then you react in such a aggressive manner. You're going to go take stuff. There's things being taken from you. So your strategy is to take what you can back, but then to face off with your oldest son, and then never reconcile it. With my son Camden, I can't fathom that. You know what I mean? To never be I'm so sorry this happened. It's quite an interesting moment of when I was looking back on my life, I was reflecting on that, not from what happened in the moment, but more from as a father, surely there's something else after that happens, you kind of want to remend with your kids, but it was kind of just left, done, never.
So why do you think that is?
I think shame is an extremely powerful emotion. I think a lot of us deal with shame for whatever reason, and I think it has its place. I think from an evolutionary perspective, shame is needed. When we're operating in tribes and groups of people, we need to know what's okay and what's not okay. And I think shame has a place. But I think when there's a really profound sense of shame, it can be a really debilitating emotion. And I think that's what it was. And I think reflecting on his life, I think that was a lot of what stopped him, was just pure shame. The events happened and he wasn't able to work through that shame, and it just put blockers in all the way through. And maybe that is part of the reason why he struggled with substance abuse. I don't know. That would probably be where I'd.
So I think you nailed. I think you nailed it. It sounds exact like shame. The way you've articulated the shame and that, it's one of the lowest frequencies you can have, and energy is shame. It's absolutely debilitating, or can be debilitating. Remind me actually of an instance when I had with my father, nothing to that extent at all, but he actually slapped me. It was the only time he really ever slapped me, raised his hand or anything to me. But he slapped me for something, and it wasn't a hard slap, so I just retaliated vocally, and I ripped into him, and I said some of the worst things I've ever probably said to a family member, and I regret that. But I then had to apologize to him, and I did, and he never did. He never ever apologize. It was an old.
Wow.
The old units are that's the way it is. I'm the adult, and I don't I'm always above you, sort of thing.
Yes.
That's what I kind of felt like. He would never have thought to apologize to me or anything like that, because of everything else he had given me and all that, which maybe he didn't need to apologize to me, or maybe it wouldn't have hurt to do it. But I think in that, it's similarly like that shame that he lost control and he slapped me, he wouldn't want to revisit it.
Yeah.
And as you go back, the easier it was to bury your head in the sand, bury the problems away, just hide them under the table or whatever.
Yeah. Sure. No, thanks for sharing that. That's it's I think it's I'll call it our generation has interesting perspective now. I think we're a lot more aware of these things, than perhaps the generations before. And so I often think about that, does that make us more able to kind of acknowledge that and say sorry, for example, not just be, I'm the father, don't have to say sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's an awareness thing. I think you've got it. Like, it's interesting because you're sitting on it. Like, some people in our generation don't. Like, I'm 82 model, you're 84 model. They wouldn't see that that's old and that's new. They just like see it, like they just live it. And yeah, it's like, I don't know, the new, like, it'd be interesting to discuss like the it's not like nothing wrong or right. It's like just thinking makes it so. But sometimes it would be good to just be open about it. Sometimes I think we like what I feel like we can see as millennials and inverted commas is that like we're able to see how far the other way everyone's going or has gone, and then to pull it back and go like, geez, like, can you imagine? My dad passed in like 2016. And it was before all this, before a lot of stuff happened in the world, and I don't know if I would have been, how he would have functioned. And he was a very smart guy, sort of wired that way. It sounds like your father had that. Is it a maths brain or what was it?
My father was exceptionally talented. He was, from what I've heard, I don't, like, the information I have from him when he was young is quite patchy, but from what I heard, he was like exceptional musician, exceptionally academically talented, and talented on the sports field. So, and from a leadership. So he had a lot of different like talents and characteristics that he could really lean on. My mom is a maths teacher.
Okay.
She's strong at mathematics. She didn't do that well at school, ironically, but it was a different time in schooling, and I think that might have been more of a function of that system than her actual ability. She had struggles with being sick and not being at school, etc. So I think from both of them, maths has been strong points.
So you inherited that IQ from both, and that so he's a musician, and then I saw in my sneak peek of your Lifeline was that, so now you moved to Durban, she remarried, and then you were schooled here?
Yeah, so I followed her then pretty much in my schooling career from when I moved to Saints after we lost our house and I had to move from St. Peter's. I then kind of followed her, except for a short stint, like did a year and a half at DPHS where my stepdad was. Okay. He was the deputy principal there. And then I went to Thomas More where my mother was teaching, and I went through Thomas More over the whole of high school. Yeah, but it's part of my story. I've been very grateful and fortunate to have a fantastic education. Like, I really have. I can't complain one bit. I had every opportunity, and it's largely because I've been able to move through the schools that I have because my mom was a teacher.
Yeah. Well, she would have prioritized it as well.
Yeah. But it would have been interesting to see what kind of. I often think, like, what kind of education would I have got had she not been a teacher and been at the same kind of socio-economic level, so earning the same but not a teacher. I probably would have got a not as strong an education as I did get. I often think about it because we wouldn't have been able to afford the schools that I got into and was able to go through. So I'm very grateful for that, and I think she was also strategic in that way.
Yeah, it's very strategic. Yeah. It's a vocation, but she's also able to. It's interesting you went to another school. My mom was a teacher too. Okay. Actually, she taught at prep, and I very much was at the same school as my mom was a teacher for primary school, at least anyway. And and then anything massive during schooling career?
So schooling, I loved high school. It really was. I was very fortunate to go to Thomas More. It was a co-educational school, so girls and boys there. And I think I thrived at. It was a fantastic time. The ethos of the school was really great. The school's history also was something I really aligned with. So it was one of the first schools to kind of. The first independent schools to buck the apartheid model and say, like, we are accepting people of color, and for that it got quite labeled, and then a lot of people know Thomas More, especially before before now as being like a reprobate school, or to use a harsh word, it's like,
Yeah.
it's a school where the smokers go.
Yeah.
Because at the early days of the school, it was quite a
Rebellious,
a flexible
Yeah.
environment. It wasn't really as mainstream as it kind of is leaning towards now. But yeah, so when I was at school, that kind of like legacy stigma was still there, but it's definitely changed now.
Did she move and teach there?
She moved and taught there, yeah. And that was when Peter Habberton had taken over as principal, and he did a great job setting the foundation for the school to become more prominent and more successful. And the whole nature of it was changing. The ethos was still there. It was a very good ethos and philosophy. A Catholic school, so underpinned by the Catholic kind of church. But it was really a good feel, a good culture. Like it was. People wanted to be successful, but it wasn't like competitive at all costs. It was a good mix of genders, and yeah, lovely school career. In school, in Thomas More, I really found my feet in terms of leadership. To be honest, that's where I really started seeing, maybe leadership is something that I can do. And I remember, right from the outset of grade 8, I was like, I would really love to see if I could become the chairman of the Student Executive Council, which is, in Thomas More speak, head prefect.
Okay.
You
don't have to sell me on Thomas More, by the way.
Okay.
Both my boys are going there next year.
You got it. That's
and I love the co-ed and that. So
Yeah.
I actually had forum, EO forum yesterday, but it wasn't in forum. We discussed afterwards about co-ed schools, and these would be in my exact words. So I wish I'd gone to co-ed school, because I was definitely at a deficit in terms of interacting with women or females, because they were just they're almost the other.
Yeah.
Because it was so segregated as a boys' school, and I great memories from DHS that I went to, but it just doesn't make sense to me. It's the world is not like that. It's co-ed.
Absolutely, yeah. And I saw that at varsity too. It was the kind of monastic scholars, the students that had gone to monastic schools, would come out and it would take them time to adjust to the new co-educational environment at varsity.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Whereas the guys who'd been, it was just kind of natural for them. So I can really relate
It's
to
interesting.
that.
And then, so you got very into that leadership pursuit?
Yeah, I worked hard at it. Strangely, I often look back on that time. I'm like, you're a weirdo. Why did I in grade 8 think I want to become the head prefect? What kind of why should I have just been worried about girls and sport and these kind of things? So anyway,
why do you think that was? Just before you get there, because you can get to Spirit of Adventure and stuff like that. But
I don't know, John.
Because they spoke up, or because they were what was your it's a good one to for me to try and unpack. I don't know. Maybe it was who was the head prefect in my grade 8 year. I remember looking up to him and being like, "Wow, that's a guy. Let me see if I can emulate that." Perhaps it was just an aspirational thing, but also coupled maybe with a knowing of maybe potential. So what's in me? So maybe it was a bit of both. And so and then it kind of unraveled. I held leadership positions throughout my full school career, all the way through to eventually getting what I wanted, which was becoming the chairperson of the SEC. Amazing. How good was that when that happened? How was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was years of kind of visualizing and looking forward to it. And so when you get it, it was a really great honor. And I really enjoyed it. It was we had a fantastic team, and it was a really good year, and we did a lot of good things for the school. So it was a good moment.
It was fun. It's so interesting that there are people out there that have visions in grade 8, when I didn't know what was the next day of the week in grade 8, let alone it's just that's awesome. And Spirit of Adventure, does that come afterwards, or is it because I went to Spirit of Adventure in school too? Yeah. And
Yeah.
was it a part of the curriculum in school? Or?
Yeah, we went to Spirit, part of that journey was I was very good friends with a guy called Jeffrey Telfer, and his father, Andy Telfer, was the founder of Spirit Adventure. He's an ex-military commander, like Rhodesian, British Army, Sultan of Oman commander. He was a very decorated military leader, and so I knew Andy through Jeff at school. And Jeff and we just really didn't know what we wanted to do after school. Like, we didn't know. And so Jeff said to me, he's like, I'm taking a year, I'm going to work under my dad at Spirit. And so why don't you think about it? I was like, okay, cool, that sounds fun. Outdoors, let's go do it. And so applied to it, got in. There's like, at that time with Spirit Adventure, there was quite a lot of applications, and only 12 or 10 we could get through. So got into it, then got trained in Andy. And it was a really fantastic moment in my life, because Andy brought the kind of like almost military-like structure in that year to us as what he called us, instructors. But you earned a small salary, you lived together. It was like, but it didn't have all the, call it, and I don't want to say negative things of the army. Well, maybe, it didn't have like things like you're gonna possibly have to go to war or go,
Yes.
like it had the structure, not to
The stresses of
So we had like the routines, the structure of it. Definitely wasn't like a military camp, but it was really great. Like I felt like at that point in time I needed that as a young man.
Yeah.
Like coming out of school, I don't know what I'm gonna do. If I go to varsity, I'm probably just gonna do whatever I want with that freedom. So it gave us a bit like contained, we did it for a year, and it was fantastic fun and a good learning experience. And I think it germinated my love for adventure at that point. I really love the outdoors and adventure. I became a whitewater guide through that, and we got to do quite a few adventurous things, which I've in my life now I've lost. I definitely have lost it. I've neglected it over time, and I'm starting to rekindle it now.
And now with the kids too.
Exactly.
You get to that. Whitewater guide in that area, or
no? So I qualified as a South African whitewater guide, so I could. So it was. I got into kayaking then. So whitewater plastic kayaking. So short little boat, Eskimo rolls, those kind of things, and just loved it. They took us on trips, and then I just loved it. So just continued it from there, and then decided after Spirit to be like, no, let me become a guide, and then I can go with people and guide them and see. So did the qualification and got it, and did a couple of trips and that until life took me on another journey.
Then you went. Then it's university, huh?
Then it's university. Yeah. Yeah, and university was great. I started off studying again when I finished. I wish I could say when I finished Spirit, I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't. And at that moment in time, business science was a new degree that had kind of come onto the mix. And everyone was like, that's the degree to do now. So a lot of people were doing business science. So I kind of just fell into the masses of being like, okay, let me just go that route. I'll do a business science finance. And then like the career of choice there, especially amongst some of the crowds, was investment banking. Was a very big deal. I don't know if it still is now. Like grads would be like, I want to be an investment banker. And so finance was the route towards that. And started that degree and did it for about a year and a half. But then through that time, I just felt like I wasn't leveling up to my potential. Like there was something more in me that I need to scratch. It was an itch I needed to scratch around that. And so I started in my second year investigating and saying like, I'm not sure this is the degree for me. I think there's more here. What else should I look at doing? I was then thinking like business is definitely a passion of mine. If I look back, entrepreneurship, I'd sold fudge at school. Like I was tutoring at varsity at that stage. And so I was like, maybe it's business, but then I was like, I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's IT. Coding wasn't as huge as now, but maybe it's IT. So I was investigating 3 streams: IT, business, and so I was maybe a CA, and then I had a strong mathematical ability, and I was like, maybe actuarial science is the one that I should be looking at, and then I went and I was like, no, let me try that, and I was exploring my options. So I was going and talking to the different faculties and seeing what I could get to make a decision. And then that's when I walk into the professor's office and I was like, I'd like to come and see if I can study actuarial science. And he was like, show me your marks. So I pulled out my marks. Marks from school were great. Pulled out my marks for my first year and a half at varsity, where I'd been partying and rowing and doing all other things. And those marks were not great. I was doing fine, but not like shooting the lights out. And he was like, you absolutely cannot make it through actuarial science. There's no ways. I'm letting you in. I was like, no, like I want to do actuarial science, and now it's like starting to get pushy about it because I want it. Like, no is something I don't take well. And eventually I managed to sell him to the idea that based on my school marks, I should be able to do it. That I've just kind of neglected my academic pursuits in this last year and a half at university. And he said, okay, that's fine, James. You can do it, but only if you study it at the same time that you're doing business science finance, because as a steward of the university, I have to make sure that you're moving through the system, and only if you make it through the first year at the same time at the grades that are required to be part of this degree program. It was quite a strict program, actuarial science, to make it through. And he eventually kind of like said that, and that's what I did. I started studying both at the same time. And focused, focused into studying that, and it was hard. Like, it was a serious course. We started off with, so I had to get a first for, so over 75% for the actuarial science subject, for statistics and for mathematics. And to kind of contextualize that, statistics 1B, which is the second semester course, is the most failed third-year engineering course at UKZN when I was there. So that one in itself was a hard one. And so I started it out, and we had 140 students and started the first semester. End of the first semester, I managed to make it through. We were down to 40. End of the second semester, end of the first year, we were down to 14. And that was it. That was the 14 that went through, like, to the end, basically.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big, like, chunks, but it took a lot, like, of serious graft to make it through. And then obviously after that, there was no requirement on what grade you had to achieve other than pass.
Yeah. So it was 140 down to 14.
140 down to 14. So a massive cut because they had to do that because a lot of what these university leaders have to do is ensure that the people get onto the course. I mean, it's a big part of what we do at Advantage Learn with our national benchmark program. But universities have a requirement to select people that will likely make it through. So when they're looking at your results, it's not just about what John wants to do. It's about, yes, John wants to do this, but can he make it through? And they try and make a probability call there, because if they clog the system, it's a big issue. And so that's why they have such strict requirements to get it through right through to the end. And then they also need to know that those people can actually become actuaries, study the professional exams, do what they need to. So it was good. And I think looking back, I'm very fond of that time. I worked damn hard, but I also did not only just work. Like the rest of my peers, most of them were just about the course and getting through the course. And I was playing university hockey. I was playing club water polo, and I'd started rowing. So like Oxford, Cambridge kind of rowing, in the harbour. We had started that, and that was kind of like the major focus of my university sport, was actually into rowing, interestingly. And did that for a number of years, while I was there. So
and still tutoring for money?
Still, paying for my varsity through tutoring. Absolutely, I had to pay for my varsity. That was the deal. And so I was tutoring, paying for it, doing the whole lot, working hard.
And no bursaries, though, right?
I did manage to start getting bursaries,
Okay, cool.
But I didn't have one there.
Amazing. It's incredible to get that and be at that level, deepest. Okay, and then after now you qualified, the degree merge into one? Now it became a...
Yes, as soon as I was through that first year, I dropped the
science. Okay, cool.
I said goodbye to that. And I'm glad I did it, but I don't, sitting here now, I don't use I'm not a professional actuary. I don't use any of it. So it's a bit of a weird one. I look back and I'm like, would I have been better now as an entrepreneur? Would I have been better set studying chartered accountancy? You know what I mean? Instead of actuarial science. So I'm grateful I did it. But it's an interesting one to reflect on, is if you kind of took me now and went back to there, what would I choose? And I haven't actually got an answer for that. I don't know if I would redo the actuarial program. It taught me a lot, but like maybe I would have been better set doing a CA. Maybe I would have been better set doing the IT degree. Like there's so many facets that I'm now using of the other two that I was trying to choose, or the three that I was choosing through, that it's an interesting question.
Yeah, what, if anything, are you using from the actuarial? Like maybe the way you look at big problems, or?
Yeah, I think technically I don't use hardly anything of that. So technically I don't think I use maybe even like 0.5% of what I studied. But I think the ability to like approach situations logically and analytically I definitely use on a daily basis, and that certainly taught me a lot of tools and methods in that regard.
Yeah. So I think it was because it would have been the discipline you would have carried through. That's a consistent
for sure.
throughout. So like you said, the military or the spirit of adventure, that discipline, then to do what you were doing in a day, we'd have to be incredibly disciplined to fit all of those things in and catch up and finish a degree that only 14 people qualified for. Cheapers. Okay, and then what happens to, because I'd never explored that, the actual, I always thought they were taken up by Discovery or by the banks, or what happened?
So at the end of, the way it works is similar to like a chartered accountant where you do your degree, but then afterwards you have to become a professional. So you've got to write the professional exam. So that's, actuarial science is the same, but actually a lot worse. So when you finish your degree, you have to go and write a number of professional exams all the way through to specializing. And there's different types of actuarial specializations. I'm not sure what the full range is now, but there's like a life actuary, there's a product actuary, there's an investment actuary, there's like different ones that you go up the lane towards. And so a lot of where you study, as when I was doing actuarial science, is a big part of how fast you can get to qualifying. And every actuarial student, their end goal is like, I need to get the professional qualification, because when I get the professional qualification, I get the salary.
Yes.
I'm a professional actuary. So getting as fast to that point as possible is most of what the students obsess about. Once I started the course, I was very committed to finishing it, but I wasn't as bought in to becoming an actuary, weirdly. So I was again not quite sure, I was looking at life tables, how it works. It all made a lot of sense. It was like predicting, in what cohort is John going to die? How can I model this into a product? Like, it made a lot of sense to me, but it wasn't like grabbing me. It wasn't like, it was like, I was trying to think, like, if I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, is this what I want to do? I like working with numbers, so tick, but is this how I want to work with numbers? And so I wasn't as seriously like connected to becoming a professional actuary as my peers were. And so I decided, so what happened at the end of my third year, when I got my degree, my actuarial degree, I then had a choice. Either I go to WITS or UCT and do their honors programs to get as many qualifications as I could, because you'd get credits towards your professional exams. So like UCT had the best faculty. So if you finished and passed, you would get like nine of the of the 13 you don't have to write. So you only got 4 left. So a lot of my peers were like, I'm going to UCT. And I was like, I'm not sure, so I'm not going. I'm going to do my honors here at UKZN. But then I knew it would be, I'm then behind in terms of the professional qualification. So I thought I'll run the risk, see where life leads me, and decided to do financial mathematics and stats in honors. And that's kind of where my deviation from becoming an actuary started. I then did that, and that was good. And in that time, I got quite friendly with one of our tutors who was doing his master's in data analytics, and he got employed to run a data science department before data science was a thing. So it was, and it was here at the call centers in Umhlanga. So they were working with big sets of data, and packaging it so that essentially call center agents could make better calls, better conversion, all that. And so he said, James, I want you in the team. When you finish, come work for me. I was like, okay, great. Salary's great. It stays at home. I'd met my wife at that time, so I was like yoked to Durban through love, and went there. The data science thing was called Metonymy, and worked under a Dutch data scientist. He was pretty off the wall, pretty crazy guy, but he was doing things with SQL like ahead of his time. He was an incredible man in terms of his talents, and so got to learn under him. And what we did was we would go out and buy. This was before Poppy and all the things, but we would go buy massive amounts of data from Home Affairs, from TransUnion, from wherever we could find it. We would buy it. We would take all that data, and we would write programs where we would basically, almost like, you can kind of think of it as like if you're trying to find gold, you would go through a number of different sieves, and you'd sieve out the big rocks and the smaller rocks, etc. We would do the same thing, but with data, and we would find the different things, and then we would connect, John to Luke to James. We would make these connections in the data and then provide that view on a software to a call, someone making calls. So they could be like, they try the home phone, no one answers, and they can look down and be like, oh, there's the their domestic workers number. Phone them. Are they at home? No, they're not home. They're usually home on a Monday. Okay, then I'll put down phone and number. So it was really clever data stuff. And I'd use my kind of statistical background in that regard. And so worked there for a number of years and learned a lot. And really, I think that's where my love for tech was born. I could see the power of it, the power and the efficiencies. And then Massmart was preparing itself for a Walmart acquisition. So they were gearing up to be acquired by Walmart. And so they wanted to, in order to be the most attractive, they were trying to emulate the Walmart model, which is in a merchandise structure, what they did, where they were very innovative, is they looked at it and they said, we've got buyers, and buyers are usually like quite creative people, not the best with numbers in general, right? So they'll look at a nice camera or mouse or whatever. That is the mouse that's going to fly off the shelves, like very like emotionally led, creative led, and then they added scientific people with them to be like, okay, you say that's going to fly off the shelves, but the market's only 5,000 big, so we're not buying 10,000, we're buying 2,000, and let's see how that goes. And that's how they managed their stock, was adding the science to it. And Walmart did fantastically well, as you can see, through those kind of innovative structures. So Massmart, to cut a long story short, was doing the same thing. They were preparing their merchandise floor with planners. They called those scientific people, and buyers, and you'd link one to one almost. You'd have a buyer and a planner. And so the mass discounters division, which is Game and Dion Wired, they were based in Durban, and they were just on a mass hiring fee. They were trying to grab CAs, actuaries. They were just grabbing people to pull into the structure. And I was part of that curve. So I moved to Massmart. And was with Massmart for I think 4.5 years, 3 years on the merchandise floor as a planner. I did gaming, music, and movies. So I had one lovely one gaming, but then the other two was a dying department. It was all CDs and tapes and things like that. and then movies was the same. I mean, I never remember, and I'll never forget. Like, it's actually, this has just made me remember. It's such a funny, but I thankfully didn't have to deal with this, but we got this like customer query that came in, and this lady was so angry, and so my buyer had to deal with it. But the basically the gist of it is those old VHS tapes we were still selling, that you put in the tape deck and you play it, and those, what would happen is they would, if they didn't sell, they would go back to the call it the publishing house, and they would record over it. So they'd use the same tape. So they don't put yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there was an adult movie on a tape, and then they took this tape in, and this is not Massmart, this was whoever the publisher was or the distributor.
Yeah.
And they recorded over a kid's movie.
Oh no.
But the times didn't align. So this lady couldn't work out why her son was watching the end of this thing all the time. then went and checked. It was an adult movie, and then it was
After
like
the credits.
yeah, exactly. And then it was like after game. And it was like, how can you sell this? Da, da, da. But no one knew because
They didn't
no
check
one,
after the credits.
yeah,
They
and
checked
no,
after the
yeah,
credits.
exactly. Like they're just recording over it. But yeah, I was literally managing stock levels of like these tapes, which is
No ways.
at this day and age sounds crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just before I carry on that, because that is interesting to see that. Have you ever seen the movie The Great Hack?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that would have fascinated.
Yeah,
You would just get that
yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
So are you aware of that? Are you familiar with that, Luke?
I think I've watched it.
It was the essentially using data points within Facebook and then helping people change their minds to
Yes.
vote Trump.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And swinging the yellows in the yellow states. That's what
Yeah.
I found so.
Yeah.
It was so precise.
Yeah.
It excited. I thought that would
No,
excite
it was
you. Yeah.
amazing. And also how it started in Obama's campaign. They were the first that started that whole using the social media engine to really help with votes
and change opinions
yeah.
and put in, and then it just got very scientific with that Cambridge Analytica.
Yes, Cambridge.
was it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
That's
There's a
it.
lot you can do with data. It's,
Yeah. It's an interesting one because now, at this moment in time, it also is like a good reflection point because I don't think I'm like, even with all that training, I mean, I think this machine is way smarter than me at data analytics by a quantum leap almost. You know what I mean? Like, it's just almost that whole skill set now has been blown up because you can get high class data analytics in a chat console.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, the research grade, are you using any of that AI for research or for any?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
deep search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I use that. Yeah, I use that quite often, especially in our educational things to just figure certain aspects out. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So when did that? Because we'll get to the business, but was it? And it's kind of like it. I think it was deemed either when I put it in the chat or whatever. It was a family business, but it was a family startup.
Yeah, for
essentially.
sure. Yeah. No, it was. So when we were at, when I was at university, how I paid for some of my varsity was my mom was at Thomas More when I was there. My brother joined as he went to Thomas More as well, and she really wanted to give us the opportunity to study a higher level of maths when we were at school. So she started teaching what was then called advanced program mathematics. And we'd do it like before school, and then we'd have our usual school, etc. And so over time, she built up this, and then she was headhunted by Kearsney to go and be head of maths at Kearsney. And so when she left Thomas More said, "Well, we don't have any teacher to do this because it's one step up. Who can do it?" And they were like, "Well, can't your son do it?" And then they approached me, and then so I was a salaried teacher at Thomas More for a couple of years, and I'd go after hours off about like 6 or 7 in the night and teach the kids in grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 using my mother's content that she had developed, and did that for a number of years. And then in really poor succession planning, I then finished my degree and I was like, bye, I'm going into industry. And then they were like, well, who's going to teach now? I was like, why don't you use my brother? And then so my brother taught. And so over a period of like, call it like, I don't even know what, 10 years, we had like built up this whole like little thing at Thomas More all through our own content and teaching in an extracurricular way. And then the Department of Basic Education said, we can't offer this anymore because we're just struggling with normal core maths. And here we're offering this on the NEC for all of it. So they just said it's off the national senior certificate. So it will no longer be a subject, like a 7th subject or whatever it's gone. And at that moment in time, we saw that. Another piece of important information is the IEB, the Independent Examination Board, which is also leans on the National Senior Certificate, but it's a separate body that runs, which most independent schools in this country operate on. They said, we see the value in extending learners that have a high aptitude. So we don't want to drop this subject. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer it as a certificate on its own that you can write in your grade 12 year, your matric year. And when we heard that, we knew, this is an opportunity now. We've got all the resources. Any student now, from state schools to independent schools, can write this exam. So we were like, Mom, it's time for you to chill out. You've been hectic in turning these math departments around. This is a great opportunity. We're gonna act on it. And so what we did is we said we went to a school that wasn't able to offer it, and that was Stella on the Bria. And we said, if you just give us a classroom, we'll offer this to your students. They'll pay us for it, and then we can offer it to DHS, Glenwood. Anyone in the area will come to our classes, and that's how the business was born. But the intention of it was really to help my mom get out of full-time teaching. And it started, it did well. And it grew. We then our heart was in, we really want to like capture not only just private schoolers, but students outside of primary school as well. So we went then to, let's set up another center. And Westville Boys was open to it, and that became our very successful center for us, and still is. And so we went in there, did the same thing, but now just with government school students, and private schools would go there as well. And then over that journey, I was still working. My brother had then become a chemical engineer, and he'd gone to work in Secunda or Sasolburg, sorry. And so we'd managed to start figuring out the resourcing. My mom was teaching more. But then our students were coming to us and saying, like, we are doing so badly in this test. Like, we don't understand. Please help us with this test. And it started saying it's called the NBT, the National Benchmark Test.
So I think you phrase it as like an equivalent of SAT.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what it. So when I looked at it, when Mom said that this is what they're struggling with, and I saw it, I was like that's got to be the SATs. I'd actually tutored SATs at varsity just for extra money. I tutored students writing, and I was like, this is so similar to the SATs. They're probably using similar things. And then I realized that's a massive industry, this preparation for SATs, huge. So I can only see an industry starting here of preparation for the NBTs if it's such a high stakes assessment. And so we put a course together quickly and launched it. And it was product market fit, like perfect. It just took off. So we were here in Durban, but we'd book out like UKZN lecture halls, and people would fly in. Kids would fly in from Cape Town who had the means, from Joburg, that hire their kids a B&B, they'd put in there, they'd come in, and we'd have a whole lecture hall full of kids, and we'd do 2-day course, next weekend 2-day course, next weekend 2-day course, and it just was humming.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at that point, I then I had to look at it. I was then still working, but I then said, these kind of opportunities don't often come along. I always have had an entrepreneurial instinct, and I was like, let's treat this seriously. Let's see if we can scale this thing a bit. And I decided to leave my job at Massmart to pursue it. And I brokered a deal with one of the development agencies, the digital agencies. Say, let me do operational management for you, while I'm building the business. So that, because we didn't have, the revenue couldn't cover both, my mom's salary and myself. And so I worked 2 jobs, worked that at new media agency, and then my first thing was, how do I scale this to other parts of the country? Because not every student can fly and get a B&B and come to our course. And that's where my journey into the digital side of learning started. And we had to solve that challenge. And it was before it was as prolific with now you can publish an online course in 2 minutes, but before there was nothing online, no e-commerce linked. So we we started. The first thing that I wanted to do was, I knew from my tech, I was building at Massmart, I was involved in the e-commerce unit. We were building one of the first e-commerce ventures called DNY.coza. And it was actually like a similar model almost to Checker 6060. That's how I built it, and we built it. It was like a fulfilled from the store kind of model, not a fulfilled from a warehouse. And so I'd got to know e-commerce a little bit in that time. And so I was very keen on let's take it online. Let's take this course online. It's highly scalable. People can then self-study. Yeah. Let's go that route. And started that journey. And the first thing was we don't have the tools. How can we find this? So I started looking for suppliers, and there was literally one supplier in South Africa that could offer us the ability to put a course online. That's all. Not even the e-commerce, just put the course online. And so I got hold of them. I was like, please, I need a quote. Can you come? And they were like, yes, we will come. And they were using a whole tool called Blackboard Learn, which is a big United
I'm
States
familiar with
thing.
it, yeah.
They were kind of like the brokers of that. And so I'll never forget, I was working in starting the business from a coffee shop in Umbilo called Colombo. There's Colombo
I
Coffee
remember
and Tea
Colombo.
Factory,
Yes.
beautiful place, lots of creatives, lovely, like sit there and work. So I was like, can you meet me at Colombo? And they're like, yes, we'll fly from Cape Town, we'll come meet you. And so they came, and like I remember walking to the side of the factory. And Colombo was a nice coffee shop, but it was in an old tea factory. It wasn't like high class. And I looked out the window, and these guys rocked up in like this shiny rented silver Merc. And I was like, oh no, I've made a huge mistake. Got out, suit and tie, and I was like, I've made a huge mistake. I can't afford these guys. They walked in, they said, cool, no, this is what we can do. Sounds great. How much does it cost? Double what we were earning in revenue at the time was just the starting.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm sorry guys, I've wasted your time. We can't do this. I'm sorry. And they're like, oh, we'll try this. And everything they tried, even down to a base Moodle instance, they started saying like, we'll just give you this little Moodle instance. I don't know what Moodle was at that time. And even that I couldn't afford. And then a co-founder who just joined Chris Muller and I, we were sitting at Colombo and we were like, well, what do we do? Like there's one of we cannot afford this. So we either forget this dream, carry on doing what we're doing, or we do it ourselves. And we thankfully said, in our youth and ignorance, said, no, F it. We're doing it ourselves. And so we got our laptops, we started working, we worked through the night and the weekend on that first week figuring it out, and eventually got a Moodle instance up ourselves on a Google Cloud, like the whole lot, and then it started the journey into digital learning from there. So we started on Moodle, we got really good at that, started selling. So the second journey was now how do we connect Moodle to e-commerce? That wasn't easy. And so that was hard. And I was like, oh, I don't want to keep sending these invoices out. Like, we've got to make this quick, click to pay to learn. And then we went to like, cool, well, let's go to a conference in Cape Town called ScaleConf, and let's just go there. We're writing code, we're doing stuff, we all bought into this whole thing. So we go down and we're standing in the coffee line, and we like trying to figure this connection out in this coffee line, Chris and I. And there's this guy with a ponytail standing there, and he's like, guys, I'm Matty from WooCommerce. And so we get to know him, and he's like one of the early stage people in WooCommerce. Eventually found out WooCommerce is one of the largest payment gateways in the world on WordPress in sheer number of sites, not in volume of transaction. But he was the CTO, and he's like, I really think you should think about trying Sensei, which is a plugin we've just built, and connect it to WooCommerce. And so we were like, thanks. And then that's it. We went from there. We like got home, put the two together. We're like blown away. Cool. Now we're on WordPress. Built the whole platform on WordPress. Started that journey in that way. And moved through. And that was great. I mean, Chris Muller, my co-founder, I'd honestly say at that point in time, what we put him through in terms of building a learning management system within that, he became one of the top developers in probably the world on WooCommerce. He knew that thing on WordPress. Backwards, forwards, the whole lot, because we were making him do so much stuff. We coded that out, built it out, and eventually, that ran both our NBTs and our further studies. Beautiful little startup, and we were flying on NBTs, and then COVID hit, and it turned off overnight. During that journey, I had been wanting to pay it forward in terms of my skills. So I'd been teaching here at in the Valley of a Thousand Hills, just over here by Kersney, but maybe as the crow flies 2Ks to a school called Quanta Bene. And I couldn't reconcile the fact that I was going in on a Saturday to try and tutor these students. They didn't have a maths teacher. They didn't have a science teacher. I was doing this stuff in technology, and 2Ks, as the crow flies, is one of the most served, supported, schools in the country, with the best maths teacher, my mom, and the best science teacher, literally there. And then I was doing the math in my head. I was like, they serving, if you do, how many classes do they teach? I asked my mom, this many. I counted like 140 to 160 students a year. So you've got the top resource in the country, arguably, only teaching 140 learners a year. And I was like, and then you've got like 2Ks away, you've got these students who are just trying to get through this stuff. And so I was like, I couldn't reconcile. I was like, take a webcam, put it there, connect that to the internet, and then these students have teaching. Like, obviously it's not the ultimate experience. The teacher's not in the room. It's not as like as synchronous, but it'll be okay. And that was when our heart was like really born into how can we unlock more potential? How can we unlock more potential in this space? So from that moment, I just went home and I said, Mom, that room in your flat is now a studio. We're turning that bed on its side. We're putting a green thing over that, and there's a whiteboard, and you're going to start record high school maths in as short as possible, long as necessary videos. That's all. That was it. And the concept was so naive and simple. It was just like, if we do that, surely there's going to be value, and we can start making an impact on the landscape of maths and science in this country as it scales up. And so we started. So just before COVID, we'd been doing that for about a year and a half, and it wasn't really well formed. It was just like we'll figure out value from it.
So ubiquity first, monetize later sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so we started learning. We got an editor. We had a studio. It started getting better and better and better. We were trying the thing of like maybe people will subscribe to us instead of paying a tutor, like kind of like pay a monthly fee, and then they can learn from Trish and not have to pay 450 Rand an hour. But that never really worked. Never worked. So, maths is not Netflix. I always say maths is not Netflix. Like it's a hard sell.
Yeah.
And we got passionate about it because we saw, like, we were big believers in education. So there's a lot that education gives you, but fundamentally there's two things that we believe in the system, and that is that it teaches you how to think. That's the first and one of the very, very, very important ones. And then so it teaches you how to think, and then secondly it makes you economically productive. That's ultimately what it's looking for. If you go to the top of, like, we just distill it down, we can go into educational pedagogy and philosophy and all these things, and the academics will probably pull me apart. But like in my own entrepreneurial and business simplicity, those are the two things: teach people how to think, and help them to become economically productive.
Yeah.
That's it.
Teach them,
right? And then there's all the other things like interaction with people and all those things. Yes. But those, like, if you're going to go into a system and come out the other side, that's ultimately what you're looking for. And if your child can think well and are doing well economically, most people will be like, good education. And so we really believe that like maths and science, STEM specifically, really has a huge impact on that. And so we were looking at the numbers and the data and the stats and saying as well, like the predictions at that time, and they're still there, is by 2050, Africa's going to have over 1 billion under 18s. It's the largest in the world, based on the projections. So we've got this enormous growth in youth population. Africa's looking, even the world's looking to Africa for the youth, for talent. But we've got education systems that are falling apart and not serving this youth in the right way. And the teacher supply line, I mean, if you put the two graphs together, it's a scary visual, because you've got the one that's just going up, and then you've got the other that's kind of trending down. Because if you think about it, especially in the STEM fields, if you're a good maths and science person, who in this day and age in the knowledge economy would choose to go into teaching? You have to be very vocation led. It have to be a love. Love. And so that it becomes smaller and smaller. So we're looking at saying, well, we've got to really try and help this problem. We've got to try and help it. And so can we help it through tech? And so that was the whole start of do the videos. We'll figure out how to put it in there. We'll try to do a subscription to try and make a little bit of money. We were paying ourselves through doing actual WordPress projects for corporates on the side and making a bit there. And then COVID hit and it turned off our NBTs. And which was hard. We had to kind of bumble through it. But what we did was we had by that stage built up a catalog of learning resources from grade 8 to grade 12, so the full high school. And when it broke on that Sunday, when Cyril told everyone, we realized that schools were in trouble.
Serious
to keep
problem.
the maths and science learning going was going to be a very, very big problem, because then now everyone's at home. How are they going to continue? So we said, look, we were naive. We thought it's going to be 3 weeks, because that's what we were told. It's going to be 3 weeks of shutdown, of lockdown. So let's offer let's just offer all our stuff for free. And help these schools, and maybe we get a bit of like brand kudos from it, and there's something happens from it. So we just opened the doors, and like people flooded in, and it was a great, it really was valuable. They loved the resources, they started to use it, but we really got to see how teachers would use our resources with their kids. And so they were like taking the videos which they loved, they were putting it into worksheets, they were doing like a whole lot of things, and we were learning from that process. And that's where our latest line, which we're really focusing on in our organization, called the Neo series, was born from. Is we realized then the mode of instruction, especially in Africa, it still centers around a textbook, a physical thing that goes into a classroom. It gives people like safety, security. It's a linear path of learning, like that's where they orientate around. But a lot of these textbooks are not supported to scale, especially scaling learning when learning is disrupted. Yeah. So if a teacher's not in the classroom, can John learn? No, he can't with a textbook. And our question was then like, why? Why can't we do this now? So that's where our mission started, to try and unlock potential through making these resources that are used in schools quite a bit more scalable, and ensuring that no learner is left behind, and no teacher is unsupported. We really believe in the teacher, and we see their value. And that's kind of where Advantage Learning, the journey was born.
Shepherd's, that's an awesome story, and such good timing. Like it seems like all the timing is just perfect. Which always in hindsight it seems to make sense, but like, you couldn't imagine it. And yeah, I mean, I mentioned just before you started that story, the discipline. I think I figured out in watching people and speaking to people about their discipline is it gets you ready. Like you don't know when it's going to happen. Like COVID was a total, like what do they call it, a black swan. Just an event like hopefully we'll never have to experience ever again. But like that, it wiped people out. So, but because you had all this other, all the investment had been done before, it was like, okay, cool, that's how, let's unlock it. And then also and we had Alon Reyes on here, and we came out with him. I think it was the first time we said it on the podcast. It's like, you never get away with anything. So like, do good things, because you never get away with it. So like, you do the good thing, and then let's see what good happens. And as you said, they're flooding and making it into just grabbing it and running with it, and making it into that ubiquity that you see it now. I'll talk more about the business. We'll talk more about the business next, because it's got, like, I'm looking at the mission passion. Obviously, we've got a huge focus on education here, and we've seen the numbers in podcasting as an alternate form of education, so supplementary in a way. And people are going to podcasts is like over in the 90th percentile, where they go to podcasts to learn something. Yeah. So it's really is not just edutainment. It's like, it's edutainment, not just entertainment. Quickly before we go to the ad, because you picked two ads. We're going to go with the second one. We'll have both in the show notes. But when did the Olympic weightlifting? You never touched on that.
Yeah.
Was that before COVID?
Yes, no, that was it was interesting training for that in COVID. It started before it like when we first started the organization. I really wanted to try and keep myself healthy and fit, and I signed up. I read an article online. It was all about this founder who, like, the one thing that he invests in for himself is a personal trainer, because it's the only time in his day where he gets told what to do. And he just does it, and it's just so freeing and liberating and refreshing. And so it really spoke to me at that time. I think I was, it was whatever, like I think it was about 9 years ago. And so I definitely didn't have the money for a personal trainer. So I was trying to look for something I could, like a hack, to get a similar thing, but just not pay a personal trainer the fees, because I can't. And so I looked into, so at that time it was kind of like CrossFit was it modeled it a bit. It's like someone will tell you what to do, you just go do it. It's a class, cool. Yeah. And so I looked for a gym there was one at DHS. I went there, and I started doing it, started enjoying it. It started to it was fun. And the weightlifting coach there said, like, dude, you need to come and lift. Your mobility's good. It looks like you got good power. Like, you need to come lift. And I was like, what is Olympic weightlifting? Like, I don't know what it is. I was starting to learn it through the CrossFit thing, but so then started it, and loved it. Like really would have loved to have started it when I was a lot younger. But took to it, and then just found it had everything in it. It had the precision. You had to train in a certain way. You could only progress over with serious consistency. It's not something you can just rock up and do. And so a lot of the elements just spoke to me. And so I just started that journey. I was horrible at first, but then started it and just consistently just chipped away, trained, got better and better, started to compete, and then started to do okay. I started to compete in KZNs here. It's a small community, so it's not a huge weightlifting community, but started to do okay in it, and that was fun. And then eventually grew in the sport, to the point where, I started post 35 is what they call masters. And so after 35, I then started to go to South African masters, and then started to do quite well. And won masters 3 times. My last one was end of last year when I competed end of October. And it was going great, loving it, enjoying the sport, really had aspirations to being... To competing for quite a long time.
South African Masters, full national.
Yeah, full national. So the last time I competed was end of last year in Bloemfontein, end of October, and then a month later had a ischemic stroke. So that ended the career overnight. Done.
Okay.
Sadly, but it was a big part of my life for the last 9 years, a big part of my identity.
Yeah, and so in the stroke, let's go there. Do you think it was attached in any way? Like, is it
possibly? Yeah. Unfortunately, my stroke was what they call a cryptogenic stroke. They don't know the cause of it. I honestly, John, thought I was healthy. Like, I was training, I was semi-fit. I thought I was healthy. But looking back now, possibly my lens is changing, but maybe I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. On markers that people usually test, I was healthy. If someone was to give you a medical sheet, to be like, you're healthy. But there's probably things there that are missing there, that inflammation, that kind of stuff that maybe that is now coming out in popular media and knowledge. You see a lot of podcasts in the States now starting to look at that in blood inflammation, those kind of things. So there might have been something there that injured my blood vessels. So maybe perhaps my blood was in an inflammatory state and it injured them. So there is a theory by the doctors that I had a vessel that was injured, so it had a little injury, and the way a blood vessel heals itself is actually through collagen. So it protects it. So it goes in, not collagen, cholesterol. And this is my simple explanation of it. So that it'll pack it over the injury so that it has time to heal.
Yeah.
Which is why nicotine has been a lot of what everyone has said around cholesterol, and that it's been masked by the tobacco companies, because nicotine injures your vessels over time. So you get these, if you look at someone who smokes, it's almost like little lines on the vessels on the inside, because that's one of the things that it damages. And then the way that the body responds to heal that is through cholesterol. So it packs the vessels with, and then obviously makes the thing. And then if a piece of that comes off, you have a heart attack, you have a stroke, because it's a clot that goes through. So their theory is that I had an injury from something, whatever. It could have been from weightlifting, because there's a lot of force. It's the whole concept of it is you move as much weight as you can, as fast as you can.
Yes.
So there's a lot of force being produced there, and then naturally, you holding your body, the blood pressure will shoot. So you'll see they even blood pressure monitor. They can't even record what weightlifters go through from a blood pressure perspective in that moment. So in that, maybe then I injured a vessel through that. Maybe at SA Champs, and
it was delayed.
And it was delayed, and then a piece came off, and found its way into the brain. Yeah. So that's one of the theories, and it is one of the leading theories, and I can't refute it. I'm not sure whether it is what happened, but it is one of the theories.
Yeah, because I've seen that lifting, that world record where he, what's his name, the monster or whatever. The guy, he lifts at 500 kgs and he bleeds through his nose. He can't remember what he said to his wife for the week. and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's Eddie Hall.
Eddie Hall,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
What's his, he was also in Game of Thrones, wasn't he?
That's the mountain. That's
The
Thor.
mountain.
The
Oh, it's
Thor.
not.
So Thor
Okay.
has beaten that record, but Eddie
Okay.
did the first 500 kg deadlift,
Okay.
and then Thor
Yeah,
lifted the mountain. Yeah,
So what? Talk us through that morning, like that, if you're up for it.
of the stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share it. I mean, it's such a part of me now. Weirdly, I like it. Obviously, like it feels surreal to talk about it. Like it's a year later. Actually, 2 days after this week, it happened last year. And yeah, I went to an exercise class in the afternoon, and it was at a gym here in Upper Highway. Did the kind of workout of the day, and I just felt flat. Like I wasn't able to perform at my usual thing. So like it like felt for what the work that I did in the workout and the how it was at the end, it was just like weird. I remember my coach coming up to me like, "Yo, James, like it's weird." Like, didn't think anything of it. Think, it could have been stressed through the day in, anything. Went home that evening, all was fine. And then went to bed. And then at about 1 o'clock in the morning, I think it was around then, the only way I can describe it is it felt like I was falling out of the bed. Like I woke up and I was like, I'm falling out of the bed. But it was almost like this strange acceptance of it. It was like, because it's not weird. Like if you think you're falling out of the bed, you stop yourself from falling out the bed. But I was like, I'm falling out the bed. Oh, I'm going to fall out the bed. And so I just let myself fall out the bed, and landed on the floor next to the bed. My wife had gone to sleep with Roman, our youngest son, so she wasn't in the room, and my oldest had come through, so he was sleeping on the other side of the bed. And so I landed on the floor, and I was like, I don't know if I thought this, but this is how I recount it in my head now. But like, that's strange. And then I was trying to get up. I was trying to stand up, and I couldn't. And so it was like this weird, it was like a humid night. I was like starting to get like, I can remember sweating and like I couldn't get off the floor. And the only thought I could think of trying to do is like, I needed a rope from the ceiling. That's like what went through my head. I wish I had a rope from the ceiling that I could grab with my right arm and pull myself back up. So eventually, like after trying and not being able to do it, I kind of shuffled myself to the bed, like got my arm over and pulled myself back onto the bed, and then went back to sleep.
Did you feel like it was dream state? Did you feel like you were dreaming?
It was like a weird, yes. It definitely wasn't like I was in a state of being highly like knowing what's going on. And then went back to sleep. And then woke up at around just like early in the morning, about 4:30, and went to the toilet. And thank goodness I did this. Went to the toilet and then came out, and I think by that stage the stroke had occurred. So in that moment, at 1 a.m, it had happened, the event, and it clogged a vessel in my brain, an artery, and it was blocking one part of it. So it was starving it of oxygen. So when I got up, I was fine. I walked fine to the bathroom. I didn't notice anything. I went to the toilet fine, and turned around and walked out, but like hit the door, like walked straight into the door. The door was slightly ajar, and my left side just connected into it. And I think my proprioception was gone at that stage already. And so that made a loud noise. And thank goodness it did, because I then went back to sleep again.
Yeah, it's typical male behavior. It's like, no, right, it'll grow back.
Back to sleep. And went back to sleep again, woke up, and then my wife came through in the morning. She's like, what the heck was that noise? And I was like, no, I walked into the door. And then I told her, I was like, I walked into the door, something strange. I walked in the door, and then I fell off the bed last night. And she was like, thank goodness for Ali. She was like, we are going to the doctor. Like, we are going, because I would have been like, no. And I've since found out that when you're having a stroke, one of the symptoms of having a stroke is a person is in complete denial.
Yes.
So your brain cannot handle.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I was in like, I'm fine. Like, I don't need to go to the doctor. She was like, you're going to the doctor. Phoned the doctor, booked the appointment, and it was like at 11 in the morning. And so I was like, okay, I worked from home. I was like, okay, we've got my leadership meeting today. I'm going to do my meeting and then we'll go to the doctor. So like, she was like, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. Go do that. I sat down, and then the symptoms started getting worse. So like, I was running the meeting, it was okay. And then like, I just couldn't work Excel. But like honestly, to me, it felt like, I can remember this moment clearly, it felt like I had internet issues on a Google Sheet. Like that's what my brain was saying.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm having internet issues. But actually what was happening is my left hand had the proprioception had completely gone. So I was thinking I was hitting a key and I was hitting a completely different key. And it was starting to escalate. And so my brother he works with me, he took over and was like trying to like, no, let me do the sheet and like that. And now when I reflect with my leadership team, like Tracy says like, yeah, she was like, James, there's something up, and she could start seeing signs of like drooping on the left side of the face. And so I went to the doctor, and then as soon as I saw the doctor was like, you need to go get admitted. As soon as I was admitted into MRI, as soon as they did the MRI, just straight into ICU.
Yeah.
And there was 12 days in ICU.
Just before we get to the ICU, because I also heard that recently about stroke. What's the right victims, the patients?
Yeah.
The denial is the first thing that they go through, and then you can convince them. Like eventually they understand it, and they process it, and it happens. And then, but then if it's a true stroke and it's set in, it'll unravel, and they'll go back into denial again, and it loops like that.
Interesting. I haven't actually read that. That's very interesting. That's fascinating. I'm going to go and read about that, because that did happen to me. Now that I'm like thinking about it.
You went into denial again.
I went into denial again.
No, nothing happened.
Yeah. I remember like messaging a friend. I mean, it's embarrassing now, but like, I remember messaging a friend who I compete with, and I'm like, no, I'm going to be snatching again in a week. You know, I'm going to be weightlifting again in a week, and I'm going to show these people. You know, it's like, no, not even accepting the level. I'm sitting there in ICU being an arrogant little idiot. You know what I mean? Like, so it definitely came back. Like, I mean, you can't be in much denial when you get put into ICU, but I definitely didn't think all the way through that. Like, I was like, this is an overreaction. Like, this is an overreaction.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then ICU, for what did they do in ICU? They just monitor you? Or
so
blood thinners, or what did they do?
Yeah. So it's so what happened with my stroke, which was quite dangerous, is so there's two major types. There's an ischemic and there's a hemorrhagic. So an aneurysm, for example, which isn't a stroke, an aneurysm is like a funny thing in a vessel that pops, right? Yeah. And that's a hemorrhage. That like you bleed onto the brain, and your brain essentially drowns in its own blood. The other one is ischemic, which is a blockage. It's a particle goes through, and when the arteries get small, it gets blocked and it stops blood from going through. Okay. So mine was ischemic. So how you try to treat an ischemic stroke is you give thinners as fast as possible to get that clot out.
Okay.
And so when they realized it was ischemic, the immediate thing was they were trying to get me onto thinners and to get the clot to move and unblock it. And unfortunately, what happened, it doesn't like happen like quick. It takes time. So this was like the third night. And it still wasn't going. And then it burst. So it turned from ischemic to what they call it a hemorrhagic like some medical term on it. But basically it turns because it bursts, the vessel bursts now, and it completely swaps. So you're on thinners, and now you know what happens if you're bleeding with thinners, and now you're bleeding into your brain. Yeah. So that's it. So they kept monitoring me, the whole thing, but like there was like a change in guard on that third night when this happened, where I could see there was a new doctor that came in, and he literally didn't leave my side. So I was still lucid enough to notice like he would come. I never forget. I can still like picture his face. He'd come to the other bed and he would check the data on the screens. Like every 10 minutes he was watching, and I knew, like, because they don't, as a stroke patient, they don't tell you because they don't want you to rush to your blood pressure to go up. So they never will disclose how bad a state you actually are. So I realized like something has shifted. Something's up, because this guy's there all the time and the nurse is there all the flipping time. And then I was just like that. Honestly, I just started praying the whole night. That night I was just like, please. And I didn't sleep a wink, and that's when it was really bad. And after the fact, I found out now, that's when basically Ali was told, my wife was told, listen, go see James and say bye, but
don't tell him it's bye.
But like like this is the night. Like it's going one of two ways. if he doesn't make, if like you can't say goodbye to him like in a proper goodbye, because you can't tell him that this is as bad as it is.
You don't want to get his heart up because it
exactly. So
increases
she had
pressure
to
and
kind of like deal with that, which was hard. And that's like honestly for me, looking back at my stroke, the harder thing is for the people around you.
Yeah.
'Cause you sit there in this like ignorant state, drugged up to the max.
They're not telling you
like,
anything.
they're
Yeah.
not telling
So
you
you
anything.
just and they have to deal with everything.
Yeah, and thankfully there, my body miraculously turned it around.
What did she say to you?
I can't actually remember. I remember her like, I can't remember that she said she was quite emotional and I couldn't figure out why, but I thought, it's just because I'm still stuck here.
She's a big, strong man in hospital.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we think. We
Yeah,
think like
yeah.
you're upset because
Yeah.
I'm sick and it's
Yeah.
difficult for you to see me
Yeah.
Man flu.
sick. Man flu, yeah.
But I can't
But-
quite remember what she did. I think she was trying to be quite stoic about it. I think she had to be because,
Yeah.
you know, she's been told, don't tell him, it's dangerous. So she's trying to be stoic. But there's
And you
a
have
lot
discussed that since.
Yeah, we've unpacked it. She was distraught. I've learned what happened like before that and how distraught she was, and my brother was there, and it was like hectic. But I think she maybe in the moment I must ask her about that. It's a good question. I haven't like asked, how did you say goodbye to me? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because I think maybe it was like she also had hope. It's like I'm going to say goodbye, but I'm going to hope it's not goodbye, because there is that it could be or it couldn't. It wasn't like James is dying tonight. Yeah, so crazy. I mean, I can't believe it. It still feels like telling you now, like surreal.
Yeah, it's only a year ago.
Yeah, it still feels surreal.
Yeah, it's interesting that those are deep questions. Carl Newport reference one of the podcasts you listen to, but the so like I was bitten. I don't know if I told you, but I was bitten by
remember you saying
puff
about
adder.
puff
Yeah,
adder,
and it's
yeah.
a long story for another time. But I tried to work out what my last words would be, because I thought I was going to die. Like I don't want it to. So I've never thought of it and that's a good exercise. Everyone listening or watching, like, work out what your last words are going to be, because you're going to have last words, like it's death and taxes. So what are the last? And I've got 3 things that I know will be my last words.
Wow.
Like if they're my last words, I can write them down. But in actual fact, they'll probably be expletives. It'll be like, oh shit, as I fall and like I fall down the stairs or something stupid. But but those deep, but actually the deep questions, like, so what do you say to somebody when that's and you don't have time, you don't have a lot of time to think about it. You just like go in there and just be cheapest, okay.
Yeah, unreal.
And your brother, did your brother know as well?
Yeah. So he was with Ellie when they told her that, like, they sat her down and was like, I don't know if this is gonna work out well. So he did. Thankfully.
Yeah, and he did, and he also came in and was. Do you think he had the same exercise?
I can't actually remember. I need to ask him. Yeah, I don't know if maybe he didn't. My feeling is that he didn't. Ali came in.
And the kids, they don't bring because of the blood pressure, excitement.
I didn't see my boys until I was out of that state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned like the kids didn't come easy, like in your life, like you had to go through some serious things with kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But how old are they now?
So Camden is 9 and Roman is almost 4. Yeah.
4. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got 9 and 5.
Nice.
Actually, interesting. Let's go and listen to that because it talks to the investment and it's an interesting one you've picked. And we'll have both in the show notes. But I think we're probably going to play this Alan Gray, Give It Time.
Lovely.
It's stunning. Not a single
stunning.
word.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah,
single
it's
word for anyone listening. Just beautiful music.
Yeah.
But yeah, beautiful piece by Alan Gray. Give it time. So
Was that for 50th? I saw something on
Yeah,
there for
50 years, yeah.
50 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
So why was that significant to you?
Yeah, I think there's so many parts of that advert that I love. I love the overall give it time, and I think based on things I've had in my life, and that it's a powerful message for me, and I take it on quite strongly. Like especially like we just chatted about my stroke, but like I wrote 3 things on a chalkboard with my stroke. The first one was never say never, and that's kind of like alluding to give it time. Like things like never say never. Things can change. Things can develop, things can heal, like it might happen. But then it's just such a powerful journey from you see a trumpet player who goes along and is constantly being almost replaced. There's a hi-fi that replaces him. There's a new club that comes along, and he's a trumpet player that has his talent, which is playing music for people. And there's all these, and you see a person kind of like struggling through that career in a way. You also see the change around him, like people, segregation in our country. You can see early stages of that advert is about. So there's a lot that means to me of like our history as South Africans. But then you see, 2 ladies rollerblading together and holding hands of different races. So there's a powerful undertone to it, both from a country point of view, which I think speaks to me a lot. But then, I think what most is, I really think from my side of things that like I'm put on this earth to somehow unlock potential in others, and to go on that journey. That's what I believe my purpose is. And that ad speaks to me because sometimes it takes a long time. It takes time with lots of different challenges to then reach a stage at the end, wherever that is, and play in front of thousands of people. But mostly because also someone else helped him to do that. I mean, the DJ in the background there is Muzi, who is the composer of that song in the background, Sondela, and he's saying, come, bring your talents that you've done and play it here. So we need to unlock potential in each other is the core message that I take from that. And potential is not overnight and quick. It takes decades. And it's a fantastic song that, and Sondela as well as a like a Zulu word, isiZulu word, it means like come along, come along, or draw near. It's like used in those contexts. So so there's a lot of power in that whole advert, in my opinion.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think I also obviously spoken about the discipline part of it, like, and sticking to it. That's where it would have resonated. I feel like you sticking to like what you do. So interesting. You've done a bunch of things, but like it always comes back to the education piece. Like it's always like either teaching or how to scale teaching, or whether you had to learn coding or learn systems or whatever it is. That I love that. Again, there's 2 things you said. Was that it teach you how to think, and then teach you how to like improve the economy.
Be economically productive.
Economically productive. So then, so you just can add value, but also add value in the right places, because you've been able to think about it. Where should I be adding value? And it feels like, even your outreach is like, I love that purpose again. Can you just say that purpose statement again? I don't know if you meant to say it, but you said it.
Yeah. So unlocking, I mean, it's something I've really spent time on this year after what happened, is like, why am I here? Like I've been given a second chance. Like, why are you here? And for me, it's just the 2 words. It's unlocking potential in others. Like unlocking potential in others.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very similar. Pepe Marais was on that. Have you familiar with Pepe Marais?
Yeah.
So he like also very purpose driven. Like just incredible machine. The one of the questions we didn't touch on earlier, and now you have your purpose statement. So I wonder if it ties and made me think of it. If you could go back to that 16-year-old Thomas Moore, like you actually hadn't made it when you were 16. You weren't the prefect yet, or head boy, or the way they label it. But what would you tell yourself, if you could?
Sure, that's a deep one. I think I would tell myself to not take life so seriously. Like to enjoy the journey. But I think I'd also try and steer myself to into saying that like you're not alone, and never believe that you're alone. And that's been a big takeaway lately. It's like I'm profoundly grateful for the people who I have around me, and who have been around me. And I think, looking at my 16-year-old self, I think it took me a long time to realize that. You come out with this bravado, you can do everything yourself, but you can't. And so it takes others to unlock potential in you, myself, and to give it back to others. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Who are your incredible machines?
So I think I was expecting this question, obviously watching the podcast, but I think I'd have to give my incredible machines that my top three would be definitely my wife, Ali. Definitely. She's both saved my life and is a rock. Then Alon Reyes, who you've had on here. He's an incredible human being. I'm very grateful to work closely with him and learn a heck of a lot from him. But then my ultimate incredible machine I'd have to give to my mom. I mean, she's given me everything. She's been an absolute machine of machines. So yeah, I have to give it to her.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, it can be a difficult one, but a deep one. We've got gets interesting, this question, but now it's flipped. It's the last moments you have with your mom. What do you tell her?
Sure, that is a very hard one. I think I'd tell her, well done, like, good job, because I don't think she hears that enough. And then just that I have deep respect and love for her.
Amazing. Did we touch on you? I mean, your quote you already spoke to, the never say never. Do the work.
Yeah, I think the quote you asked for was
the quote I've got you. Yeah.
Yes. I think the quote that I love the most, and it's actually quite like it can't be.
Gets misattributed often, but it was Einstein.
But it's actually not. It's from a book where Einstein is referenced. Is everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. And I just love that. I think everybody's got a genius, no matter what disabilities we have, for example, what challenges we have. Everybody's a genius. It's just how we look at that person makes the difference.
Yeah, it is an incredible quote. I love it. And yeah, I mean, thank you for the work you're doing daily.
Thanks.
Okay. And how are you feeling at the moment? Like with getting back, I mean, it's unbelievable that what happened to you, and now when I saw you, I had absolutely no idea. I speak to EO members. I don't know if I mentioned this, but we met working with UKZN on a project where we were doing marketing at one stage, and then again through EO. And you've been on the list, on the profile to get back into EO. The guys are like, James should be. So your name's come up, but no one knew. No one's heard about it. And I wouldn't be able to tell. So you're doing a great job, I think, and your discipline.
Thank you.
I believe you'll carry on.
Yeah. No, thanks. How am I feeling? I'm feeling tired. Like at this point in time, it's been a long year. I'm glad to that chalkboard again. That one of the other thing was I'm not going to say do the effing work. I've done the work this year, so I'm proud of myself for them. So I'm feeling proud, but I'm feeling tired, and I'm looking forward to a rest. But John, I'm feeling good. Like I'm feeling hopeful and excited, and that's I'm very grateful for. So grateful.
Grateful. Is there anything you want to close with?
Just to say thanks. It's been an absolute deep honor to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. That was incredible. That's it.